Europe's farmers are up in arms. They have put down their tools, boarded their tractors, blocked roads and plunged the bloc into chaos. The first to take to the streets were Polish farmers. They started the blockades last year. It was the first call to action. But now it has spread across the region. In France, farmers blocked highways leading to Paris. They overturned trucks, set up tents and burnt produce. The aim was simple. They wanted to starve the capital.
On ira sur Paris.
We will go to Paris, show our rage, show our discontent, show that something must be done. Today, the profession can no longer survive. It is being strangled.
Similar scenes in Germany. Thousands braved freezing temperatures. They took to the streets and blockaded the country's biggest airport. There was absolute chaos. And the picture is the same everywhere in Europe. In Greece, farmers dumped their produce. In Belgium, they targeted border crossings. In Italy, farmers lit fires. And in Portugal, there were long lines of trucks. Most of it was peaceful. But in Brussels, they vented their anger. It is, after all, the headquarters of the European Union. Farmers rolled into the city, camped outside the EU Parliament, lit fires, blared their horns and hit the Parliament building with eggs. Soon the situation turned tense. Police had to be called in. They hosed down the angry farmers.
The import in Belgium and Europe is from outside. The rules outside of Europe are too easy. It's too difficult for us to farm normally on a daily basis. It's too difficult for us. We ask easier rules.
Farming makes up just 1.4% of the EU's GDP, yet the blockades are a serious nuisance. They've cut supplies to countries. Fresh produce is hard to come by and prices have been rising. You see, angry farmers are never good news, and when coupled with inflation, they spell disaster. Which brings us to three main questions. Why are Europe's farmers protesting? What are governments doing about it? And will these measures be enough? First of all, why the protest? Farmers across the EU have a lot of grievances, a lot of complaints. There's rising debts, cheap imports, price pressures, climate change, and the EU's heavy regulations. Farmers must abide by strict laws which do not apply outside the European Union. These laws make farming in Europe more expensive, so their produce costs more. But in the market, they must compete with cheap imports. Obviously, they lose out. Then there are country-specific issues, like tax breaks and subsidies. Governments are reducing these and farmers don't like the idea, so they've been protesting. And after weeks of protest, they seem to be winning. European governments are offering a compromise and farmers seem to have won this round. The EU wanted to halve the use of pesticides. It has now scrapped the plan. It has also made other concessions. Plus, countries are taking measures individually. France was going to increase diesel tax. It has scrapped the plan. Germany was going to cut diesel subsidies. They watered down the plan. And Greece has announced a special tax rebate on agricultural diesel. So concessions are being granted. But will it be enough? Farmers say they need more. Their biggest complaint is cheap imports, mostly from Ukraine. It's flooding European markets and hurting the business of farmers in Europe.
We took to the streets to protest against Europe and the new laws it is making. Agriculture has already been on its knees for a long time, and we took to the streets because we have reached the end of our rope.
We are demanding a better tomorrow with lower production costs, lower fuel prices, lower electricity prices, and a fair distribution of subsidies.
Now, while this story is about Europe, let me digress a bit. Because for our viewers in India, the scenes may look familiar. India went through something similar. Farmers took to the streets in 2020, protesting against new farm laws. The West was quick to lecture. They slammed the Indian government and its handling of the situation. Countries like Canada also tried to stoke the fire. The protests continued for months. Finally, the government gave in. It made concessions. Now, Europe is witnessing the same, and headlines like these have emerged. Police moved to end Dutch farmer protests. Whatever happened to their freedom of expression? The point here is simple. Protests are a part and parcel of democracy, but they cannot be allowed to cross a line and hurt public order. When they do, law enforcement agencies have to act in India and in Europe.